Science. We are so excited to have you join us for today's experiment. My name is Dr. Laurie Murrah Hansen with UG Extension Fulton County and Fulton County 4-H. And today I have with me...
Hi, I'm Dr. Virginia too, and I'm an AmeriCorps member working with the 4-H of Fulton County.
And today we're going to be talking about the importance of soil and how it helps us get the food, fiber, and lumber that we need to sustain our world. So to get us started off today, our experiment is using an apple to represent the earth and how much soil we have available on the earth. So I'll walk you through the demonstration, and of course you should always have a parent's permission and parent supervision because we are going to be using knives today. So to get us started, like I said, this apple represents our beautiful home, the earth. And if you think about the earth, we've got land and water. So as we know, water encompasses a large part of our earth. So I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces. And think about how much of our earth is covered by water. That's right, 3/4 of the earth, about 75%. So I'm going to take this and very carefully, I'm going to cut this in half, and then cut each of these into half.
So we have 4 pieces?
Yeah, so we cut our apple into 4 pieces. So if I take 3 of these and set them aside, this is of course represents our water. So it's going to be our oceans, streams, lakes, anything that isn't land, of course. So this little 4th part apple represents how much land is on the earth. But if you think about our earth, it's really diverse. And we've got deserts and swamps and mountains, all kinds of things. So this just represents the amount of land. So if I take this and cut this 4th into half, now I've got 1/8 of our apple. So I'm going to set this aside because this 1/8 of an apple represents the polar ice caps and high mountain ranges. So those are, of course, our land, but polar ice caps, they're soil, but underneath a really heavy layer of ice, and our high mountains are really rocky. So those are areas, of course, that we can't grow any plants for food or for fiber or for lumber. So we'll set that aside. So now we're down to 1/8 of our apple. I'm going to cut that into 4 pieces. So you got to be careful because we're starting to get small. So we'll cut it in half like that. So we'll cut each of these in half. So now I've got, you're doing the math, 1/32 of the earth. So I'm going to set these 3 aside. These 3 represent land that we can't grow anything on. So it may be deserts or swamps, or it could be areas that are urban areas that are covered by concrete. So the reality is there are just places on our earth that aren't really suitable for growing anything. So we're going to set those aside. So now we're down to 1/32 of our apple. And if you think about the earth, really the only part that we can use is a very thin part right on the top. So that thin layer we're actually going to carefully peel off the skin of our apple. We just have this tiny, tiny little piece that's left. So this 1/32 of an apple represents the soil that can be cultivated, and we can grow food, fiber, and lumber for the entire population. So if you think about how many billions of people are on the earth, there's really not a lot of land that's available for us to grow the food that we need. So keep that in mind. We can also compare it, of course, to our original apple. So here's our earth apple. Here's what we have left. So important to think about, especially when it comes to taking care of our environment and really leaving our earth available and ready for the next generation. So I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Virginia. She's going to talk to us about soil, because that's what we're talking about today. And you may think, oh, dirt's kind of boring. But we have found that soil is really, really interesting.
Yeah, soil is really interesting. It's very important. So a lot of times when we think about soil, we think about that section that is used, that 1/32 of the apple that's used for farming and stuff, and for producing lumber and fibers. We're thinking of something that's kind of nice and dark and rich, that's also kind of light, but is able to also hold moisture, because that's really important. But soil is actually composed of a lot of different types of things. So soil is composed of actually 45% of rocks and minerals, so things like this in different sizes. It can be big rocks, and then even fine things like sand. 25% of soil is water, and 25% is air, because that's important for roots to soak up water, as well as for them to breathe, because they do respiration as well. And then actually only 5% of soil is what we're kind of typically thinking about, which is this organic matter that's nice and rich and very useful for growing lots of types of things. And so in Georgia, there are 6 different types of soil, but a lot of people associate Georgia soil as Georgia red clay.
That's right. Stains your clothes really well.
It stains your clothes, and it can be kind of compacted. So this is some Georgia red clay that I found in my yard, and it's kind of crumbly, but you can also see that there's roots that are growing through it, so it is permeable, but it also gets really hard. So it's not the best reservoir of water. So it tends to get really hard. It's that clay-like texture. And do you want to know why it's red?
I do, actually. That was going to be my question. Why is it red? When, if you buy soil from Home Depot or another home improvement, it's brown, right? So why is our soil red?
So our soil is red is because it has a high concentration of iron oxide. So when you think of iron and things like that, it can kind of rust. So it's got different types of minerals, but a very special kind that's kind of unique to Georgia, but it gives it this characteristic red color. But it's still very good for growing a few types of things, such as all the pine trees we have, like this type of soil because it's kind of high acidity, and as well as once the roots permeate through this, that they are able to absorb different types of water. But this isn't the best type of soil for things in your garden. So in your yards and in your lawns, you might have a nice layer of like topsoil. And you can amend that, where you can add some different types of compost or different things to keep it nutrient rich as well as porous, and ways for plants to be able to suck up water appropriately, because Georgia red clay doesn't do the best job of that, but you can amend it. So soil is really important because we can do good things for it and we can do bad things for it. So the layer of topsoil in Georgia is kind of thin, and so we can improve that by planting plants that put down nice root systems and that add back. So you can do a thing called like green manure, where if you put like cover crops, they put down a nice layer of roots, and then when you can chop them down, they can provide a nice layer of mulch and that organic matter. Because in addition to the water, rocks, air, and organic matter, there's also organisms.
Yeah, so I was actually going to ask you, we think of maybe earthworms, but I'm sure there's more things besides just earthworms that live in soil. So what is in soil?
Totally, there's all types of things in soil. So we think of like macroorganisms, which are larger. So those are like earthworms that are decomposers of different types of organic matter. And we also have like things like ant colonies. They do a lot of things in the soil as well, where they aerate and build up, as well as process a lot of organic matter additionally. And then we have things like microorganisms like bacteria and also fungi. So sometimes if you have like a pile of mulch and you see like a little white covered on it, that's some fungi growing and decomposing that and breaking down that organic matter. So there's a lot of different things going on in our soil, and it's important to know that it's alive. It's kind of considered in relationship to the earth, like kind of the skin of the earth is our soil, and it's very important to keep it healthy.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dr. Virginia. We hope you've learned a little bit about soil, and keep that in mind, when you're applying fertilizers or maybe pouring out things into your yard. We want to keep our soil healthy so that we can continue to cultivate the fiber, food, and lumber that we need. And if you haven't yet, watch our apple recipe for this week, because our theme is apple. But we hope you've enjoyed this session of Fulton Fresh Kitchen Science, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.